Okay, so we're going to finish up our app now by actually wiring together the logic, building what we call the controller, which is going to be done in Java. Right? Okay, so back here we see that to test this guy, I didn't even need to run the app. I can see the UI here pretty well. I did actually get running on my emulator, and you know it's the same thing, right? But just the buttons don't do anything yet. So let's go ahead and get this guy out of the way. And we're going to go back to our Java file here, so mainactivity.java. And what we get for free actually isn't very much. So we have main activity, which is referring to the screen, which is a Android activity. And it has one method here called onCreate, right? So at the time that this screen is created or activity is created, it's going to call it and it's going to pass it in some information, which calls up to the activity constructor here, or the activities onCreate. And then what it's doing here, which is really the important thing, is setting the content view. And you notice it's referring to r.layout.activity_main, right? So let's kind of look at this here. So R just stands for the resources, right? So this resource folder here, and .layout is going to be the layout folder, and inside it has activity main, right? So our activity main.xml. So this is essentially saying take everything that's in that XML file and actually instantiate all the objects, or actually create the buttons and the text views and the layout and everything that's there. All right, so this stuff actually does live there. So what we're going to do first of all is capture that those different views. And the way that we do that is a method that's called findViewById. All right, and findViewById, as you might expect, takes an ID. So the IDs are going to have very similar things. They're going to be R because they're resources, dot, and if I start typing ID, dot, and you remember back in our XML, both the button and the text view each had an ID. So let's go ahead and grab the text view. All right. Now this guy right here makes a text view, and I want to assign it into a text view, and maybe I even just call this text view for now since I only have one of them. And if I were to save this, it's going to be complaining about a couple things. First of all, it doesn't know what a text view is, so I want to import one. I could select it here, or I could just hit Control-Shift-O, and that'd be fine. The second thing is that findViewById returns a view, and it's saying that we have a type mismatch here. It turns out that we know that the type of this guy here is a text view, so simplest thing to do is just to cast. In fact, that is what we'll do always here. So we're going to cast that guy to a text view. Now I could even set its text right here if I wanted to. I could say textView.setText, all right? And then I could give it whatever text I wanted, right? I mean, I could do something as simple here as saying, you know, hello. But that doesn't seem to make much sense since I already gave it an initial value. Really, what I want it to do is tell me how many times I click the button. So let's save that idea, and we'll come back to it in a minute. All right, so I have my text view. I'm going to go ahead and capture my button as well. So declare my button. So button, and I'm going to be casting this one to a button. Call findViewById, r.id.button, and then Control-Shift-O to import button. All right, and then I have them captured now. So what I want to do is go ahead and put a listener on the button. So button dot, and you just gotta just kind of memorize the beginning of this. You're going to be setting what's called an Onclicklistener. So what happens when we click it? All right, you notice that the Onclicklistener takes a parameter, which is the listener itself, right? So we're saying listen to the button, and this is going to be the class that responds when we click it. You know, we can do things like make it this to be this whole class here. For something that's this simple, what I'm going to do is just declare an anonymous one right here. So a new Onclicklistener. If I hit Control Space, it knows which one I'm talking about. So I'll select that, and it's going to stub in some information here. So I'll save this guy, import Onclicklistener, and again I want the view Onclicklistener. And it knows that every listener, that's an interface, so it needs to have an onClick method, right? That's called. All right, so this is going to be what happens when it's clicked. So when it clicks, what I want to do is take the number of clicks in it and increment it by 1, right? So I'm going to need a field for it. So up here, I'm going to say make a private int field. In Android, the standard is to have every field start with lowercase m, kind of like my. So I'm going to say essentially my number of clicks, and I'll initialize that to 0. And then whenever they click it, I'm going to take this number of clicks and just increment it by 1. And I might want to update my what the text view itself says. So I'm going to say text view dot set text, and I want it to be some message, right? Well, what message is that? So let's make a string right here. Message is going to be, and I remember I declared that format string in strings.xml. All right, so here I had this message format, all right, that says this, or even has a placeholder for the integer. So I want to get that out of there. So I'm going to do get string, and this is get string. All activities have a get string method, so it'd be like this.getString if I wanted, and then to the resource ID. So I'll click this guy, and that resource ID is going to be r.string dot, and then the message format. It's overloaded, so it has a version right here that if you also passed in the thing that was going to go into the format, that it will actually stick it right in there for you, which is kind of cool. So it's going to take that and say, you know, I clicked it 10 times or however many times. The complaint here is going to be that the text view needs to be final. So just up here, they just want assurance that we're not going to be assigning this text view to something different. Doesn't mean I can't mutate its parameters. I just can't assign text view equals a new text view or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and set that text like that and run my program. Okay, so I launched on my emulator here. So I have this guy. Whoops. Come back, emulator. So it says you've clicked 0 times. I click press me, and now it's going to say 1 times, 2 times, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Right? So it seems to work just fine. So good work. If I go back in here, I'm going to do one more thing. What if I wanted the text to sort of disappear, kind of fade into the background after I click, say, 10 times or so? So I'm going to put an if statement in here, just for fun. So if my number of clicks is greater than 10, then I want to reassign the text color. And I want to do this just to show you how I get the colors from my colors.xml. So I might do something like text view dot set text color, and set text. There it is down here, text color, and one of them is an int. Okay, so the thing is, this isn't a resource int itself, so I can't really do r.color. I mean, it's here, but that's not what I want to do. I want to get the color, kind of like before I got the string. So in fact, let's add one more line in here. We'll say int. So we can say background color if we want, and that's going to be, it's a little bit different syntax here. So I have to get it from the resources here, dot get color, and then the int, this guy right here, is actually the r.color dot. If we want to fade in the background, we'll use background here. So this is sort of the magical incantation, right? If we think about it, it's asking, hey, resources, give me a color with this with this identifier that you created in your resources, and go ahead and assign that to an int, and then I can pass that into text view here. And again, that's only going to happen if I click more than 10 times. So I'll launch it, wait for my emulator. Okay, it's up. Let's see what we get. So you clicked it 0 times. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're on the boundary case, right? So bigger than 10, click, oh, and it goes away, right? So it's still there, but of course it's the background color, right? So we succeeded, we made it disappear, right? So again, nice work. Let's review what we learned here. We'll go back to our slides. So again, what have we done? We've captured different references to the views here using find view by ID. All right, so you'll see that we used find view by ID that returns a view that we cast to the appropriate type and assign them to variables that then we can use here in our code. All right. The second thing that we did is we set the Onclicklistener, right, to listen to the clicks. We used an anonymous one right here, so the whole thing is declared right here. We have a new instance of one. We didn't even give it a name. We just said use this one with this onClick method. And we filled in the guts here with what we wanted to do, which was essentially update the number of clicks and then set the text. All right. One last thing is that you'll notice that we used a few different methods here to get information from the XML files into our Java code. So let's review each one, right? So the first thing is if we wanted to get stuff out of the layout, right? So actually getting the views there, what did we do, right? So we used find view by ID, and we passed in the ID of one of the widgets in there, right? And we could get it. Second thing is we needed strings out of strings.xml. What did we do? We called getString, and we passed in r.string, and then whatever the name of the string was that we had declared. And finally, for colors, what did we do there? Something very similar. We used getColor, but first we had to ask for the resources for the activity, and then get the color, and then pass in the identifier there. Sounds good. You'll notice one other thing that we could have done directly if we wanted to. You know, we used a variable there within our set text, but we could have actually passed into set text the resource ID directly, which is an integer. Turns out to be an interesting source of bugs if you ever just want to print an integer. Say you wanted to print just the value 17 in your text. You really need the string 17, because if you pass in the integer 17, it's going to think that's one of these resource IDs here. Okay. That's it for this lesson.